Hello and welcome to another weekly update. I hope everyone is safe and well. I hope isolation isn't too bad. You're stuck at home. I hope you're still managing to get stuff done, do the exercise and sort of stay relatively healthy and stuff. At least the weather is kind of on our side, at least in the UK. It's been quite nice to be able to get into the garden a bit as well. And I think it's kind of a busy time for everybody involved in the Microsoft Teams space. If you're doing anything communications development wise, this is a really busy time. Obviously we've seen exponentially more workers at home than previously, and that's having knock-on effects, both good and bad, and unintentional consequences. So it's about kind of keeping on top of those. But I think for a lot of us as well who are used to working from home, this is about supporting our colleagues, our friends in and outside of the company we work for, who are coming at this for the first time, who don't habitually work from home and don't know necessarily how it works, the tips and the tricks. So it's all about kind of helping each other. And there's some blog posts this week which might help a little bit with that. So the first interesting thing to tell you about is Microsoft Teams custom backgrounds. So this has been around for a little while, but there's kind of public information that it's coming soon. It's on User Voice. It's reported on allaboutmicrosoft.com. So Mary Jo Foley on her blog post has reported this. And yeah, it's a feature that's been around quite a long time. A lot of Microsoft folk have it. You'll probably be familiar with background blur in Teams. That's already out in GA. This is a bit like that, but instead of the blur, you can put whatever background you want in place. So you could have like a corporate image of like an office, you could have a beach, you could have a forest. I've seen some fun ones, the International Space Station, for instance. So there's a number of different things you could do. And I think this is kind of interesting. It's good to actually see this being prioritized as a feature over some other features, because this is something everybody will be able to make use of whilst they're working from home. You could sort of argue, I suppose, that we've got background blur that helps in getting rid of some of that background of the washing and the general house life that a lot of people have in their backgrounds that they don't want to have on show. And background blur is good for that, but I think custom backgrounds are important for adding a layer of individualism and kind of personality, which is really important. And you get in physical spaces, in when you meet people face to face, you get some of that in their personality, in the kind of clothes and accessories, and you get much less of that on camera. So having the ability to put a custom background in is, I think, really important for people to express their personality. So I actually think this is quite an important, useful feature that is coming. So I think this is really good. So that's a kind of unintended good consequence of all of this. One kind of less good kind of side effect around all of this is that obviously the whole Microsoft 365 Azure Teams environment and system is under enormous load at the moment. Unprecedented amount of load, and that's having some side effects. And Microsoft are responding by throttling some services. So on one side, it's actually really good that they have this ability to selectively turn features on and off in order to manage load whilst keeping core services running. So it's just things to be aware of, and this is something if you're trying to stay doing the day job of developing new applications throughout this process. If you're interacting with different APIs, if you're trying to automate different processes and interact with different applications, you should be aware of the limitations that are being imposed, because they're going to have weird side effects that you probably are going to think is your code, and you're going to be blaming your code and spending ages going down this rabbit hole of debugging when actually it's just a service degradation thing. So there's another, again, also Mary Jo Foley, kind of always a really good resource for what's going on in Microsoft land. But she's got a good list of temporary changes. So it's things like, for instance, OneNote in Teams is going to become read-only. So you'll have to go to the actual OneNote client to make changes. So it's things like that. It's not taking away features. There's things you can do. It's just some of the real ease of use stuff is actually computationally quite hard. If you imagine how doing real-time OneNote editing in Teams as well as in OneNote, they can take away a bunch of processing effort by saying, well, actually, you can do that in one place. You don't need to be able to do it in 3 or 4. There's been some changes to download sizes and sync frequencies. There've been some changes and some rescheduling in SharePoint about how SharePoint manages some things. It seems like there's some long-running operations and batching operations that happen in the background on SharePoint, and they're going to move some of those to regional weekends and evenings to kind of take some of the load off the day-to-day. And the people timeline in Stream, if you've used that, if you've done any Teams recordings, that goes to Stream, and then you can get the people timeline, which tells you when people are talking. That's been disabled for the moment for all new videos. So if you're trying to make that work again for your newly uploaded and newly recorded videos and you're not able to, just know it's been disabled for the moment. I think it's just about reducing load on the overall system. So some changes just to be aware of. It's not really surprising given the vast numbers of new people that have come onto the system in the last couple of weeks, and it's good, in fact, to see Microsoft responding in this way, because the alternative is the service goes kind of down and south for everybody, and core and critical features get impacted, and that's not what anybody wants. All right, another interesting, kind of an interesting blog post, in fact, on this was something that's come out from the Slack CEO, that they're going to be using the public APIs that Microsoft have available for doing calling to add some Microsoft Teams calling features into Slack as an integration. Now, I think this is weird on a couple of different levels, so let's take them. So technically, I think this is going to be challenging. Looking at the crop of calling APIs that are available, it's not immediately obvious to me how you would bake that into something like a Slack integration, but I think we'll wait and see what they do. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure what the intent is. I'm not sure if this is user feedback based, because I don't know if users, maybe there are Slack users that want a Microsoft Teams integration for calling, but I guess so. But I mean, if you've got Teams set up for calling, then I feel like you'd also use Teams for IM chat, Teams and channels as well. But maybe there's some subset of people that want it in, like they want to use Slack, but they also want to do the calling part in Teams. So that'll be interesting to see. But business-wise as well, I think this is in some ways a huge change from the Slack side, who have always been relatively separate from Microsoft when it comes to integrations. They famously took out that full-page ad in the New York Times back in 2016 when Teams entered the market, and I think kind of the relationship's been relatively distant ever since then. So this is going to be interesting. I think from looking at the limited amount of comment from both Slack and Microsoft on this, I think it is just Slack using the public APIs. It's not an indication of like a deep integration or partnership between the two companies. So yeah, interesting. And finally, just to let you know, I'm going to be doing a webinar next week, so next Thursday. It is for Modernity Systems, the people I work for. It is part of their webinar series, which is called High Performance Microsoft Teams, Your Foundation for Success. It's a number of, I want to say 6 different webinars that have happened. So 5 of my esteemed colleagues have gone previously and said all the good stuff around data-driven team success, optimizing security and governance, adoption and change management, a guide around telephony, creating meetings with one meeting. So yeah, lots of things. I'm going to be talking about the Microsoft Power Platform and Microsoft Teams and how they play together. That is, it's next Thursday, April the 2nd. It is at 9:30. I was going to say GMT, but I guess it's probably BST if the clocks, or is it, I don't know when the clocks go back. Anyway, 9:30 UK time. So if you can join me, I'll put a link to the registration link in the description. It'd be great to see you there. Right, that's everything from me. Let's wrap it up because that was a long one. Hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, wash your hands, and I will speak to you again next week.